Welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we have with us Amy Ketchum. Amy is from my hometown back in New York, and we met when she was attending one of my workshops a couple of years ago. And she has a couple of strange stories to share with us. So we're very excited to have you today, Amy. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a little bit of background about you, Amy.
Let me see. I'm a massage therapist. I've always loved everything, I don't know, supernatural, if you want to say. I grew up using the Ouija board. I know a lot of people don't like that, but it was just common in our family to, grow up with this kind of stuff. So, and I've always been interested in it. It's always been very intriguing. I don't have like super senses, like I don't get messages or anything. Well, no, I take that back. I'm sorry. I have gotten some messages, but I wouldn't say I'm not psychic, but I have gotten some messages and some intuition, and my intuition always seems to be spot on, but I don't always listen to it, and that's something I really need to work on.
Absolutely. I think that's something we all have to work on.
Yes.
So, who introduced you to like the Ouija board and what was that like as a kid?
My grandparents. Like, I remember using that as early as elementary school. We just
Mhm.
and there was other things we did. We just did a lot of stuff like that. Everything on that realm we did. It was just normal to me. I guess my grandma, she had a little more psychic abilities, I guess. So I guess it somewhat runs in our family. My nephew has tons of psychic abilities. He sees spirit all the time and can actually talk to them and have conversations with them, and has his entire life. So it kind of runs in our family. I mean, I got a little bit of it, but not too much.
That'd be on your mother's side of the family or your father's side of the family?
My mother's.
Is it your mother's mother then?
I'm sorry.
Your
Yes,
mother's
it was my
mother?
mom's mom.
Okay,
Yes.
that's interesting. Did that did that continue on to your mother as well? Was she also interested slash experiential and those types of things?
My mom isn't. I am. My sister is. Like I said, my nephew definitely has the ability. There are other people in my family, like aunts and cousins, who kind of have it too. So we have a big family. So it's, some of us have it, some of us don't.
Gotcha.
So when you were using the Ouija board back then, was it like presented as like a game or was it more presented as like a serious thing that we are
Um,
actually trying to connect?
I guess it was I was a kid, so I took it as a game.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I realized how, like, two of my aunts, how eerily they were able to use that. Like, like when they played together, we actually had to have a third person sitting there writing notes, because the planchetta on the Ouija board would move so fast you couldn't keep up with what it was saying. So we needed someone to just sit and write it down and later break it up into words.
Mhm.
Because though my two aunts, it was just amazing. I mean, the Ouija board would go into details. One time it gave them a message to give to somebody that they did not know, but it gave them a message to give to somebody, and they actually looked that person up and gave them the message, and that person was just so, so grateful and beside themselves, because that message, meant so much to them.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of your like spiritual background. Like what, do you have a specific, spiritual like tradition that you follow or
No, I'm not religious, but I do believe in the spirit world. I believe in we have spirit guides. I believe there's something greater than us. I personally don't think you need organized religion to relate to that, or to be, a decent person and do good things on earth. So, I just I go with the flow. I try to listen to my intuition, and, I just try to do it day by day.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really am eager for you to tell us your story about your intuition and going to the grocery store. So tell us all about that.
Okay, well, I have two stories. I'll start with the grocery store one. I at the time had moved to South Carolina, and came back up to New York to visit over Easter break. And it was this particular day, it was Easter Day. And the next morning I was due to drive back to South Carolina, and I was at my mom's, and all of a sudden this message came through my head. The message did not have a voice, but clearly something was being downloaded to me. And it told me to go to the local grocery store, which was Price Chopper. And when I first got the message, I'm like, all right, that was weird. And I shrugged it off. A little while later, same message again, go to the grocery store. Again, I thought it was weird. This went on for several hours. And finally, I got to the point where I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to the grocery store. And she asked me why. I said, I have no idea. So I got in the car, and the whole way to the store, I'm arguing with myself, like, why are you doing this? This is ridiculous. You don't need anything at the store. But yeah, I continue to drive because somehow some force was making me do that. So I went there, I parked, and as I go into the store, I'm still grumbling with myself. This is silly. I don't need anything. I'm going up and down every aisle. I'm like trying to think if there's something I need. I'm like, nope, I don't need this. I don't need this. Up and down every single aisle. When I finally get to the very last aisle, I run into the guy who is now my husband. So I thought that was like really weird.
Like you physically ran into him?
Well, not physically ran into him. We saw each other in the aisle. Yes.
Okay.
We had known each other when we were young. So we saw each other in the aisle, and we reconnected from our younger years. And then, things, progressed, and now we're married.
That's amazing. When did you have the realization? I mean, I'm assuming because you're telling us the story. When did you have the realization that meeting him at the store or running into him at the store was the reason why you kept being like told, like, you need to go to the store, you need to go to the store?
One, I finally felt peace come over me, and the messages stopped coming at this, they stopped telling me to go to the store, and then once I met him, I was like, this was it. I just knew. You just knew deep inside, like, that was supposed to happen.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit? You said it was like this message was being downloaded. There's no voice attached. So describe to us what it was like. Like, how did you know that you needed to go to the store? What was that experience of receiving the download like?
It was really weird. That had never happened to me before. And it was so weird. Like, I was clearly getting a message. And obviously looking back, it had to been telepathically or something like that. It was weird. It struck me odd that there was no voice, but it was very clear. Somebody was telling me this is what I need to do. And I just went with it. I didn't question at the time, like, how I was getting the information.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still kind of wonder now, but at the time, I just didn't really question it. At the time, I was just like, this is silly. Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm. Was it kind of like this just knowing, like, I have to go to the store?
Yeah, well, I knew, like I said, clearly received the message. Not like I just had a thought, like, oh, I should go to the store.
Yeah.
That message was being downloaded to me. Somebody was sending that message to me, and I received it. And then eventually, I listened. I'm like, I have to do this. I have to follow this for whatever reason.
Do you feel like an experience like this, and then also kind of looping back around to the idea of the Ouija situation with you and also family members, do you feel like well, one, do you feel like that those are a connected thing, or maybe not?
Connected with the Ouija?
Yeah, do you feel like it's the same kind of thing that would cause that, the word you used was download, would be a similar
Um,
type of phenomenon as getting real answers from a Ouija board when you were a kid?
I don't think they're quite the same. I guess only because when you're doing the Ouija, it's spelling stuff out, so you're reading things. Like I never heard anything or got information doing the Ouija. I was just reading whatever they were saying. Whereas this, I was clearly given information, like somebody was telling me
Mhm.
Sure.
something. So it was a little bit different.
Is more of an internal experience rather than the Ouija board is more of an external kind of experience.
Yes.
Okay. Where do you think the download was coming from?
Honestly, I think it was my spirit guides. I really do. Well, or my late husband. That I really believe that my late husband had something to do with putting us together.
What makes you say that?
I don't know. It's just a feeling I have. It just really is. I can't explain it, but I just feel it was, or maybe it was a combination between him and my spirit guides. I don't know. It's just something I feel. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, and a lot of these things, it's like, I mean, I've received downloads, so I know what you're talking about, but if other people haven't, it's hard to put it into words, And so, like,
It,
what you're saying about, like, I know that my late husband was involved. It's, there's no scientific way right now to explain why, it's more of just, it's this feeling, it's your intuition that is telling you that.
exactly.
That to me is just a very fascinating story on a lot of different levels. Personally, for me, why it's fascinating is I believe that Jonathan and I were guided together. He might not completely buy into that. But I do. I mean, I was living in New York. We met online through, a fitness challenge. And I just have this intuitive knowing of, like, I was part of that group, I was part of that challenge, I was part of that community in part to meet him.
Yeah, I believe that too. I totally believe everything happens for a reason. We just might not understand it at the time.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's so fascinating to me that, just you were guided and you went there and look at how your life turned out. Whereas had you refused to, listen to that guidance, life could look very different. You could still be in
It
South Carolina.
it could, but bringing that up, that brings me to my second time I got downloaded where I did not listen and it had some kind of negative consequences.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, I was on my honeymoon with a guy who I met at the grocery store. We were coming back from our honeymoon and we went to St. Lucia. So on the flight back, we had to go through customs and then go through TSA. And as I was standing in line with customs, I got this other download that said, Amy, take off your flip flops and put your sneakers on. And again, I'm like, wow, that was weird. I ignored it again. And a little while later, same thing. Amy, take off your flip flops, get your sneakers out of your suitcase and put them on. And then I'm arguing with myself. course. I'm like, it's so much easier to go through TSA with flip-flops, you know, I don't want to have to take off sneakers and put them back on, blah, blah, blah. So I did not listen. And when we got through the place where we had to give them our packed luggage, I actually, as I watched them take my luggage, my heart and stomach kind of sank. I'm like, Amy, you really should have done that. But I didn't. And no less than 10 minutes later, as we were heading down from TSA into, we were going to go to the food court to get something while we were waiting for our flight. And less than 10 minutes later, I slipped on some water that was spilled on the floor. Oh, went down, massively injured myself, and ended up having to have surgery.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, so now, and I can't help but wonder now, like, if I had listened, would I have got injured that bad?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't say for sure if I would or wouldn't have, but my gut is telling me that I was being told that for a reason, and maybe I would not have gotten injured as bad if I did have listened.
Did that feel similar to the first download, or was it different?
100% the same.
Okay.
That's interesting.
And it's weird. Those were the only 2 times I've ever had those downloads.
Mm-hmm.
But they were 100% identical.
How have these experiences influenced you?
Oh, it greatly increased my belief in our spirit guides, and there's more on the other side. And then I really need to start listening to my intuition. I get intuition all the time. Usually it's about silly, insignificant things. You know, I could think of a song and seconds later it comes on the radio, or, you know, something silly like that. But I have that little stuff all the time, and I don't always listen to it. And I'm trying harder to listen to it now, because sometimes I don't, and I'm like, oh, I really should have listened to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's something so silly and it's insignificant, you don't think much of it at the time until afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
when you're like, yeah, I really should have done that.
And I think it's easy for our ego to kind of talk us out of it, you know, for whatever reason. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened when I was going to the grocery store. My ego was arguing with myself, like, this is silly. Why are you doing this? But the force sending me there was greater than my ego at that time, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think that as humans, we kind of want to have an explanation for things. I mean, I know that, you know, I personally like to have reasons for things that are happening around me and things that I do. And, you know, I think everyone finds themselves asking that question sometimes of, is there, you know, what is the logic behind this? So, you know, as humans, we're also kind of trained to ask questions like that. It's like, well, is this a logical thing? So I think that does make sense. You know, personally, you know, from my perspective, you know, I have no doubt that what we call intuition is probably, at least sometimes, a thing that we just haven't figured out a way to how to measure yet, you know, science wise. So science is very young in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, when it comes to intuition stuff, it's easy to dismiss things when they're happening to you. But if you've got, like, you know, the benefit of a couple of years to look back on, you can kind of see, well, I would have been right about, you know, X number of things. And, you know, it does start to look like a pattern, right? Like, I mean, that's just kind of a thing but we also, as humans, our brains look for patterns. So that's that as well. You know, I've got no doubt that you experienced the things that you're talking about for sure. You know, as far as the whole, you know, skeptic thing, you know, our deal here with this is, you know, seeker and skeptic. And me being the more skeptical of the two. It's not that I doubt that people are experiencing what they're experiencing. I'm just always curious about the reasons behind what's going on with them. For me, it's interesting that you've got that family history of, you know, precognition, even with, you know, the tool of the Ouija board, you know.
Yes. Oh, I 100% believe you. It is hard to believe in something you can't see and you don't fully understand. But when you feel it deep within your soul, then you kind of got to go with it.
Yeah.
Sure. I've actually been kind of waiting for to have a talk with somebody who's more intuition based as far as their experience goes, because there's a thing that I experienced. Well, actually, it wasn't me that experienced it, my father, who passed away a few years ago. That is very intuition based, and I don't think I've even told Brittany this before. But with my dad and intuition, but my father was he was a Southern Baptist minister, and he kind of was of the belief that anything that was gonna be happening supernatural kind of ended 2,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? He's one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And but when I was 11, my dad looked at me, and we didn't have a lot of conversations. My dad was not he didn't talk a lot. He just was he's a weird guy. And he looked at me, he said, if you're ever with a friend and he takes the television, run.
Oh my God. You have not told
And
me that story.
Really?
the reason why she says, "Oh my God," is that 20 years ago, my one of my best friends, who's actually still one of my best friends, and I, to make a very long story very, very short, had been drinking one day in the middle of the winter, and we had gone to the school we had both gone to. We had both gone to the college together. Neither one of us was enrolled anymore. He had left. I had graduated, and we were drunkenly wandering around campus, and he stole a television from that place. And he was fast and I was not, and I was wandering around. We were drunk. I'd forgotten that it happened, and I ended up getting arrested because I didn't leave.
Oh,
And they would never have found me. They didn't know where I lived. I wasn't a student anymore. They had no way of getting a hold of me. I just was drunk. Drunk
right.
people do dumb things, and I ended up, having a minor but annoying legal issue to deal with because I did not run when my friend saw a television. Days later, it reminded me of that thing my father told me. I was 11, and he had no way of having any thought that anything like that was going to happen. He didn't believe in intuition. He didn't really believe in anything other than the physical, Bible. But with the benefit of hindsight, I have to assume that that was an intuition event he had somehow, and you know,
I love it.
Those are definitely very interesting stories. I mean, you could see it on my
It
face.
is.
Yeah.
I love hearing about other people's stories too. I don't like, so you can't explain it, but I
Mhm.
just love hearing about it. I love everything about it.
So do we. That's why we're doing this.
I'm so glad you are.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I think that we understand ourselves and reality and humanity better through storytelling. I think there's a lot of power in it. So I think it is great to have these conversations. So, Amy, do you know like who your guides are, what they are, like what do you think about all of that?
I don't know. And I have tried, I've taken some of John Edwards' courses to try to communicate with my spirit guides and get better at this. And I don't know if sometimes I try so hard that I block anything that should be coming to me because I really want it that bad. I think I just kind of need to, relax a little and let it come naturally. But I don't know who they are. And I wish I did because I would really like to build on that. I would like to, I can't say I have a relationship, but
Mhm.
I would like to be able to listen to them more. And, they say you can communicate with them. So I just think that would be really, really neat, but I just haven't had the opportunity to experience that yet.
And when you get an intuitive guidance, for you said it happens a lot for like little everyday things. Is it similar to like just this like inner knowing, or is it a gut feeling? What is that like for you?
Kind of like a gut feeling.
Okay. Yeah, just kind of like your intuition and your gut is telling you this is the thing or this is what's going to happen.
Yes.
So in the context of trying to get more information about what you're calling what you specifically would call spirit guides, are there specific methods that you've tried? Are there things that you're more open to trying or less open to trying? Like, is there like a specific path that you feel is calling to you to try to do that?
Um, I have tried a lot of different things. I've taken a lot of different classes. I've read books on how to do it. I just haven't been able to make it work for me. I don't know why. I mean, I would just love to be able to do it. I've, like I said, I've taken several different classes, some in person, some online.
Mhm.
And that they'll ask you, like, pass a picture and like tell me what you think of this picture, and then they'll go around and everyone will say what they think, and then in the end the teacher will say, well, this person was, this, and then you're like, oh, all right, I got one or two of those things out of that, but not everything. But I'm willing to try anything. I try meditate. I have gotten past life regression done. I really want to get my Akashic records read. I think that would be really neat.
Well, you know somebody who does that, so.
Do you do that?
Oh yeah, yeah, I do.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to contact you.
Absolutely. Just reach out to me. But I think it's everybody is so different when it comes to intuition. And you said something before that I'm just going to share my beliefs about. You said you didn't really think that you're psychic. I genuinely believe that everybody has the ability to be psychic. I think that some people are born maybe a little bit more open than others, and but other people can do things to enhance their intuition or their connection to spirit. So that's my belief system. Not everybody shares that, and that's okay for sure. For me, it sounds like where you just have this intuitive knowing. And so for you, the practices that would kind of help you tune into that a little bit more might be different from um somebody else who, again, I can't remember my clairs, like who can
Claire
see
audience.
it. Yeah, like who can hear it or see it, right? Like yours is just this intuitive knowing. So like how you would probably work on it to enhance it might be different. So it's just figuring out like the path that's right for you. And I think you're right in terms of like if you try too hard, you're blocking off the energy channel that will connect you.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
something I learned when I was training to do like Reiki, is like it's like stop trying, stop doing, just be the channel, be open, relax, and then you're letting the natural energy flow. And I feel like it's probably very similar for this.
I agree. I know when I got my level 1 Reiki, when I was getting attuned, I, I was wanted it so bad that I felt like I was maybe blocking it. So I asked my teacher. She's like, "No, it went through. Don't worry about it." But while I was getting it, I'm like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, I was so excited to get it, but my mind is just like all over the place and being scattered. And
Yeah, I think that's a very common experience. Again, it's like the ego parts kind of get in the way, so it's
yes,
learning how do we quiet them down so that you can kind of let that spiritual energy come through.
exactly.
Just for reference, because the clairs, the quote clairs, have come up a couple of times, but I don't think we've actually had in an episode uh, an actual definition of what this means. And I try to bring in definitions of stuff when we talk about things that maybe not the casual listener may not be familiar with. Most people have heard of clairvoyance, which is anyone who says that they are a medium of some kind would be considered someone who says that they're a clairvoyant. That means clear seeing. But there are a total of 5 of these things consistent within metaphysics people. There's clairaudience, which is hearing something. You got a message that comes orally through for you. There's clairsentience, which is a clear feeling, which sounds mostly kind of what you're talking about. But there's something similar that's called claircognizance, which is a clear knowing, which is maybe that's the download thing. I don't really know. And then there's one that is always on these lists, but I've never heard anyone say that they have experienced it. And it's this clairalience, which I'm probably not pronouncing that right, which means clear smelling. I've never known anyone say that they have a psychic smelling power. But if somebody here is listening and has that, I want to talk to you because I want to know what that means. Just putting it
Well,
out there.
your
I've heard
girlfriend.
people say like they can smell somebody, like if someone who has passed and let's say a certain perfume they wore or something like that, like somebody can smell that and like know that, oh, so and so is here because I can definitely smell, their perfume, or I can smell whatever pipe they smoked or something like that. I have definitely heard of people doing that.
That definitely happened to me after my grandma passed away. I came home from school one day and the entire house smelled like her perfume. And it was like maybe a week or two after she had passed.
Huh.
So, and that was the only time that that's happened to me, but that definitely happened. Thank
Gotcha.
you, Skeptic, for giving us the definitions, because very bad seeker over here. And, I remember feelings. I don't remember facts. So I appreciate that. And I
Well, if
do,
Paradol or Jeopardy ever becomes a thing, I think that I've got a shot at the Jeopardy.
I think you do. But I do think, just going back to what we were talking about, I think Amy, it probably was more the claircognizance, right? Like, I feel like the clairsentience, kind of just going back to that, is more about like feeling energy. So like, and you might have this too. Like, I know I'm an empath, so I can feel other people's emotional energy. So that's kind of like the clairsentience, I believe.
Yeah, I think the claircognizance is the knowing. You just know it.
Yeah. Yep. It's very
Uh,
interesting.
Another thing, going back to, you were talking about a class you're in where there was a picture passed around and you were looking for impressions.
Hmm.
What's interesting to me about that is I'm not sure if either of you or maybe any relatives have heard of Zener cards, which I may even be pronouncing that wrong. I've only ever read the word Zener, but there was a psychologist I think he mostly practiced in the 40s and 50s, named Carl Zener, and he came up with this test to see if someone uh, is likely to be on like the ESP scale. And there's 5. This is a mixture of cards. There's 5 cards. There's a circle, like an O, a plus sign, 3 wavy lines, a square, and a star, and they had different colors on them. And he would record the experience, what do you call it, patients or volunteers, kind of in like a study kind of way, and he would look at the card and ask the person what they thought the card was, and he recorded, I think, hundreds of people doing this, and he felt that there was a pattern of certain people to be able to figure to see, because he knew, and that's how he measured ESP. And I kind of feel like that might be a take on the Zener method. And anybody who remembers the old film Ghostbusters, they do that in Ghostbusters in a couple different scenes.
I think I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm gonna have to go back and watch the movie.
Yeah, I feel like it is kind of a similar process. It's like you're trying to pick up on the energy, what's on this card, or, from this photograph, what energy are you picking up from it? So it is just a different way of tuning in, it sounds like.
Yeah. Did I tell you when we were young at my grandma's house that we used to actually levitate people?
No, please tell more.
And we loved doing it. We loved it. It was so weird. We would have like anyone lay down, like an adult, whatever, and we would have 4 people, one at the head, one at the feet, one on each side, and we would each take 2 fingers on each hand and put underneath the person, and then we would say our, I don't want to call it a chant, but I guess it kind of is. We would say our little diddy do, and at the end we would say, okay, ready, lift. And we could honestly get those people like 2 feet off the ground. It was so weird, but it worked every single time.
Was the chant light as a feather, stiff as a board?
Yes. Well, kind of. Wait, kind of. No, it was kind of like, she is sick, she is dead, she is dying. We will wrap her in white linen. She'll be light as a feather. Tomorrow we will bury her. Then on the count of 3, lift.
Wow. So it seems like it was derived from that. I definitely have heard of light as a feather, stiff as a board.
I have too.
And remember trying it as, an adolescent and did not have that experience. So that's wild that you could actually lift people. That's wild.
We did. And I honestly, I think because we did it at my grandma's, and there were so many people who, like I said, had connections with the other side, that the accumulation of all the energy together probably allowed us to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I know if I do the Ouija board now with like just my sister, sometimes we can get it going, sometimes we can't. But when we were at my grandma's and we had everyone there with all that energy, it just flew, and it would go on for like an hour. It would just say so much stuff. So I think it matters like how much energy you have while you're trying to, do whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, it seems like your family members were definitely very spiritually attuned. So it was like, yeah, it was easy for them to kind of connect that way.
Yes.
The sessions where you had somebody writing, you wouldn't happen to know if anyone in your family happened to keep those, do you?
I don't know if they did. I would have to ask them. But what's really weird, one time my aunt asked the Ouija board, where do you live? And the Ouija board actually said, I live in your closet. I watch you get undressed and I love you. Like,
oh my.
Yes. Yeah, that was a little weird.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
That's incredibly specific.
Yes.
Had her husband passed away at that time, or?
No, she wasn't married at that time.
Oh, she wasn't married.
This was like a long time ago. Yeah, she was probably like in her 20s at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
That
I was like,
kind of makes it creepier.
Yeah, if it's your, husband watching you, okay, that's one thing.
Right.
But just some random ghost.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I sage my house regularly.
Yeah. Good call. Good call.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This has been a very fun and interesting conversation. I really appreciated hearing your stories. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you were so welcome. I enjoy talking about it.
Good.
Nice to meet you.
You too, Jonathan.
Well, thank you again. It was so good to talk to you, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Take it easy.
Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.